Welcome to the next lesson in this course, solving configuration as a cross-cutting concern. This is going to be one of our quicker lessons, but nonetheless, its impact is going to be very valuable for the modularity of our project. So let's see how we are going to implement this. How you can specify configuration values in ASP.NET Core is through the appsettings.json file. You can also create a respective overload for different environments. For example, in our app settings development JSON file, we have our connection string for the database running inside of a container. Another way how you can pass in configuration values is through your application secrets, and you can access this by going to manage user secrets, and you can see that we have some value here set by Visual Studio. And another way how you can pass in configuration values is using environment variables. If I jump over to my Docker Compose override YAML file, you can see that we are passing in some environment variables for our API project, setting the current environment to development and setting the HTTP and HTTPS ports. However, the most practical way how you can pass in your values, at least those values that aren't sensitive and can actually be shared as part of your source control, you can define them inside of your appsettings.json file. Now, what I want to do is to create a respective appsettings.json file for my events module, which is currently the only module that we have in the system. In the future, we will have more, so we will need to manage some configuration values between our different modules. So here's what I'm going to do. I will take the appsettings.json file and create a copy. Notice that this is also going to copy the development.json file, and now I'm going to rename this file to modules.events.json. The great thing is it's also going to rename the nested file. Now, inside of these files right now, I'm not going to add anything because we don't have any module specific configuration, but in the future, when I need to add anything that is specific to the events module, for example, how often I want the background processor to run, I can do that here. For now, let's just add some dummy values. I'm going to define a top level section matching the name of my module, so I will call this events, and then I can place any configuration values that I need inside of this section. So let's add that in the respective development.json file, and let's close these files. The next problem we need to solve is how do we actually include these JSON files into our application settings when the application starts. This part might not be obvious. Just adding these JSON files to your API project won't do anything. We also have to tell the runtime to use these files. So how you can do this is by saying builder configuration, and then you can call the add JSON file method, and you can specify the path to your method and some flags to say if this is an optional file or not. Now, I don't want to be hard coding this for all of my modules, so let's be a little smart about it and create an extension method that's going to do that for us. So I will create a class called configuration extensions. Because this is only going to be used from my API project, I will make it internal. And then let's create our extension method. It's going to be void. I'm going to call it add module configuration, and it has to be an extension method on the iConfiguration builder type. Let me go ahead and define that. And then I need to pass in an array of modules. And this is just going to contain the name of my modules. And what I'm going to do is to write a simple for each loop through my modules array. And for each of my modules, I want to say configuration builder add JSON file. And then I'm going to create a path to the respective configuration file. So the convention that I want to follow is modules, and then the module name, and then JSON, which is going to match the main configuration file for this module. I will say that this is not optional, and you should reload this file when a change happens. Now let's also add the optional file, which could be the development.json file, and this will take care of adding these two configuration files for my events module to the application. Of course, I also need to call this method. We can do this right after the call to add infrastructure. So let's say builder configuration, add module configuration, and I just need to pass in an array of module names, and I will hard code the value of events. In the future, when I want to add configuration for a new module, I will create the respective module JSON and module development.json file and add the module name as another argument to this method. And the JSON files containing the configuration for that module will be automatically picked up. In this lesson, we implemented configuration as a cross-cutting concern for our modules by creating separate configuration files for each of our modules. We also implemented a simple extension method that will manage adding these configuration files when the application starts. In the next lesson, we will implement structured logging using the Serilog library, and we're going to use Seek as our log ingestion and monitoring server.